What's up guys, Ravenclaw here and welcome to the first episode of Know Your Enemy, and in today's episode we are looking at the Holy Paladins. Now, Holy Paladins are all about that burst healing and massive cooldown management. So the first thing I will look at is their playstyle. So one thing that you need to look for when you're up against a Holy Paladin is where they're located on the map, because their mastery is all about the proximity to their targets. That is, so the closer they are, the better their heals. More importantly than that is their defensive cooldowns. They have a lot of utility. So let's have a quick look at what they bring defensively. The first cooldown we're looking at is Blessing of Sacrifice. When this is mixed with Ultimate Sacrifice, it becomes basically immunity to the target that they've put it on. Here is what I've found to counter this is there's no point in trying to pummel the target down. So if you're able to spread damage between not only the target that it's on, but the Holy Paladin itself, that is going to force that Paladin to heal the crap out of himself, or more importantly, pop some defensive cooldowns. So that's something to make sure you watch out for. And some have been known to use this as a CC breaker, but that is a massive investment just to get out of a CC. So the next one, Blessing of Protection. So Blessing of Protection is basically let's say a shield that protects against melee damage. So if you're a caster, if you're a mage, this can be dispelled, but it can also be spell stolen by a mage. So the important thing is here, when you see it, if you cannot dispel it, it's best to switch targets until you see the bot drop off, because there's no point in trying to, especially if you're a warrior or whatnot, no point in trying to pummel a whole bunch of damage into a brick wall, essentially. So let's move on. Next one is Divine Favor. Divine Favor is a very interesting one. Once they pop Divine Favor, they become immune to all kicks, and their next Holy Light or Flash of Light becomes like a massive healing bomb. So how to counter this? Once you see this is active, you can dispel this. This is dispellable. But if you don't have a dispel available, what you can do is you can CC the Holy Paladin until it falls off, or silence. These are all things to sort of keep in mind, especially if you're trying to like burn down a Holy Paladin. Once you see it up, best to CC him out so he can't get a Flash of Light off, or Holy Light, whichever. Okay, lastly, we are looking at Divine Shield. Divine Shield is basically an immunity to any sort of incoming damage. This is something that you really want to force out of the Paladin as soon as you possibly can, because the sooner this goes off, that's a massive defensive cooldown that they have just lost. Having said that, once they pop any of these blessings and Divine Shield, they go into Forbearance, which is pretty much saying that they cannot use any other major defensive cooldown for 30 seconds. So that is a massive window that you have to try and just burn down these guys. So it really depends on what you want to do in your arena match, but it's important to focus on these particular defensive cooldowns in general. So now we know defensive, let's check out what healing cooldowns they have. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the healing CDs. So the main ones we're looking for are Avenging Wrath, Holy Avenger, and Infusion of Light. These three together are basically the Holy Paladin's burst healing. Avenging Wrath increases the critical strike and the overall healing by 35%. Holy Avenger increases their haste by 30% and their Holy Shock healing by 20%. But on the side note of that, Infusion of Light. Infusion of Light is a proc that comes every time they use Holy Shock, but as long as it crits, that is. Holy Shock, when they do get Infusion of Light, it reduces the cast time of Holy Light, one of their main healing spells, by 1.5 seconds, and increases the healing by Flashing Light by 50%. So it's important to make sure you know what you're looking for when they are bursting these things. It just allows you to know that, alright, I know that these are down, they are going to be pretty weak. As a Holy Paladin, you are pretty weak when all your massive cooldowns are on cooldown. Okay, but here's the thing, right? Along with Avenging Wrath, you've got Avenging Crusader. It's a talent that they'll take to basically do one of two things. as we all know, a Holy Paladin is all about that single target healing. They're not very powerful AoE healings like a Resto Druid or a Resto Shaman. The Avenging Crusader simply says, all right, this is going to be our only AoE heal, well, main AoE heal. It only works though if they make damage on a target. Okay, so if they use Judgment or Crusader Strike, it's 200% of that damage gets transferred to healing to the team around them. Here's the way to negate this. So when you see a Holy Paladin pop wings and they're coming running at you, chances are that they've taken Avenging Crusader and they want to not only try and get as much damage on you as they can, but get as much AoE healing out as they can. So you can negate this by either kiting the Paladin, or you can, if you are say with a Priest, any absorption shields that you have on, the healing that would have been done by Avenging Crusader is instantly negated because it only works if their abilities do damage to the target. So it's something to be mindful of when you see them running at you. Another cooldown that they use is Tears Deliverance, which is basically, it tires or tears, whatever. It's basically their artifact weapons talent. Okay, it's simply, once they pop this, it heals I think the lowest health target around them. Now I keep saying target, allied target, whatever. Okay, so that's something to keep mindful of when they do have that up. Also, their Flash of Light and Holy Light are increased by 20%. That one's just more of an FYI than it is anything else, because there's not much you really can do other than CC the Paladin when it's live to stop that healing from going in and out. So those are the main massive cooldowns you need to make sure that you're aware of when you're in Arena, and you want to make sure once you are aware of these, you know to force them out, and once you've seen them, you know that that's it. Their cooldowns are done and they're going to be pretty weak until they're back up. So it gives you that window of, yes, we've got this, we can move in on them. Because once a Holy Paladin's cooldowns are done, they're pretty weak. They're basically relying on critical strikes to be able to, you know, push forward or getting in massive heals out. So it's your chance to say, let's switch to the Holy Paladin, and so on and so forth. So lastly, let's talk about how to control a Paladin and what CCs or control that they have. So let's quickly talk about what CCs the Paladins have. Their main one, and in my opinion the only viable one, is Hammer of Justice. Hammer of Justice is a stun for about 6 seconds, but they can reduce the cooldown of this stun by using Judgment. So it reduces the cooldown by 10 seconds every time they use it. So just keep that in mind. They do have Binding Light, I think it is, which is basically like an in-cap, so they can do an AoE CC, but more often than not, they'll take the Hodge. Now, the Paladins themselves are very susceptible to CC, and basically all their main heals are castable. So the Paladins, what you need to make sure you keep an eye on is, you know, waiting for that right moment to be able to kick a Paladin. Also, chaining a CC on a Holy Paladin is more viable than other comps. For example, they're very hard for them to get out of, say, a Poly, whereas a Shaman can drop Grounding Totem, or a Druid can just switch form to mitigate that sort of CC. But a Holy Paladin, basically the only thing they could really use is Blessing of Sacrifice, but if they use that to just break a CC, that's a huge defensive cooldown that they've lost just because of that. Other than that, like, their long cast times are making them very susceptible to being interrupted, especially against a mage lockout of 6 seconds. So the best way to counter these are to make sure that you can lock them down as quickly and as fast as you can, put as much damage on the whole team as opposed to just sort of one target, because as we spoke about, their AoE healing isn't on par as that of a Druid or a Resto Shaman. And watching for all those defensives, if you can get the defensives out of a Holy Paladin hard and fast, that is a massive advantage that you'll have in the game. So locking them into CCs, making sure that you kick efficiently, not just on every heal, just when you're about to get the kill, you lock that Paladin out. It's basically forced. It's forced to use any defensive it has left, and if you weren't able to get the kill, you know that they've lost their defensive. You've got that 30-second window to just switch targets and burst down the Holy Pally. So yeah, that's basically my quick rundown of how to sort of counter a Holy Paladin. If I've missed anything, please let me know down below. This is my first episode of this series. Obviously been playing a Holy Paladin, but I've done a little bit of research too with others to sort of get as much information as I can. If you want to see more of this series, if you can't wait for the next one, please hit that like button. Let's say if we can get 50 likes on this one video, then I'll do a next one for sure. That'll just make me sure that you guys are actually interested. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys, because the more the merrier, and there's plenty more to come. And yeah, until next time, you amazingly awesome people out there in YouTube land, you keep on sniping, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.